times. So.
Hello and welcome to the Drunk Duck QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 570. Today we're talking about hair. Fascinating little subject. Hair in comics, or hair in just hair. But before we get into that, I have to talk about the featured comics. So here is QUACKCAST going to tell us all about Space Daddy Adventures. So take it away, Quai, with Space Daddy Adventures.
Hello, this is QUACKCAST, and the feature I've selected for this week is Space Daddy Adventures by Hushicho, and it is rated M for mature. Take a dip with Jemmy and the cutest penguin named Waggy as they battle it out with a cephalopod-like creature in the hot springs. Follow a hologram projecting Oob to a nest of adorable Poquos that it is destined to protect. Discover rest and solitude on the moon of the gardens with Jasper Udayan, a lovely flower. There is no shortage of adventure or adorable dodos wherever Space Daddy travels. He really is the daddiest daddy in space. This comic starts off in full color and switches to grayscale. The comic strip layout demonstrates experimentation in panel dimension sizing, which makes for a more comfortable reader experience. Join the Galactic Explorers Alliance Starfleet and read Space Daddy Adventures by Hushicho, rated M.
And that was QUACKCAST with Space Daddy Adventures, comic by Yu Hakusho. No, just by Hakusho. Different person. Okay, so next up we have featured music by Gun Wallace. This week he's given us a musical theme to a comic called Rota Metro. This bounces along in a rhythmic mechanical pulsing of a complex machine, keeping to a time and purpose known only to itself and its creator. Following its progress is lulling and mesmerizing. One could get caught up in it and keep going for days. So thank you very much for that, Gomelis. Take it away. was Rota Metro by Gun Wallace. It's a theme. Rota Metro is a comic by BYJ561. So go to check that out. It was featured last week. No, not featured last week. Featured the week before last week, maybe. I can't keep these things straight in my head. So hair, Tance. This is something that we both know a little something about. We're both quite hairy people, at least on our heads. Our heads are quite hairy. I'm not talking about anything else. Although, you know, your beard is quite notable.
I have no idea about any other hairs.
Well, I haven't shaved today, so a bit scratchy on the chin.
I cannot see it from here, so it's not nearly enough.
Oh yeah, it's blonde, so I get away with it. It can be quite scratchy. And white too, unfortunately. Baines isn't here to show us his amazing beard, so we're missing out on that. That man has a colossal beard.
Yeah, but it's pretty awesome.
Oh, it is a fine piece of chin shrubbery.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're both long-haired people. You've got much longer hair than me. Quite chestnutty at the moment, quite reddish.
Yes, reddish chestnutty, fiery hair.
Fiery, yeah, it's very rusty, looking good. And
thank you.
Mine's this kind of mousy, yellowy, muddy blonde color. But long.
I would say in Greece that would be, I don't know if that is like a French term, but it would be like cendré blonde.
Oh, like sand?
Yeah, like a sort of sandy, but also graded, like has a lot of tone to it, and it's overall blonde. So
there we go.
Excellent. People pay for this over here, so.
So we're both fire tones at the moment.
Yes.
Fiery hair, but we give very special attention to the hair of our characters in our comics because we care about hair. And let me let you guys in on a secret here. I don't know if it's a secret. Like I have long hair because I used to idolize rock stars when I grew up in the 80s, and all the rock stars had long hair. So that's why I have long hair, because I loved rock stars and Conan the Barbarian. All the best barbarian characters had long hair, and all the rock stars as well. So that's why I have long hair. And I've loved that on my characters as well. So although I don't give my male characters long hair very often, just because it doesn't fit with my comic, so I don't really do that. But I used to draw every one of my male characters that would draw as a just a one-off thing. They would have long hair, just because that was my thing.
I like long hair in general. I mean, both in men and women. I really like long hair, and it shows, I guess, like in my fantasy story, like everyone, almost everyone has very long hair. So there you go. I didn't have to do that, but I did it.
Well, yeah, I love a lot of natural hair. Is always been an appealing look to me. That was one thing that I really liked about Without Moonlight, because everyone has, like you explained in our Patreon video, everyone has the grown in long hair because they haven't had the ability to cut their hair because of, they're in wartime and they really can't be messing around with like silly vanities. So people who have become the partisans and go to the mountains and stuff like that especially haven't been particularly careful about that, although some other characters have been cutting their hair, like obviously the Nazis and the Irish and some of the city people, because there's a slightly different thing going on there. If you're in a city, you really have to kind of fit in. But yeah, I love that shaggy look of those characters. The Che Guevara kind of look is
sorry about that.
Awesome. Yeah, that Che Guevara kind of what is it? It gives a kind of very rough sort of a feel to a person, but also a
Mm-hmm.
quite there's a lot of energy to that look.
Yeah. Well, a nice thing when at least I like it when I sketch people with long hair is that I can give the drawing extra movement with the hair, especially. I mean, it doesn't need to be blowing in the wind for this to happen. Just the way that it frames the face, or the way that it moves if someone is running, or if someone is even like leaning over something or turning to look. It has movement to it, and I really like that in a drawing. And that's something that I really enjoy, especially when, and I'm really glad that I can get away with drawing people with curly hair. I really like wavy and curly hair a lot. And we seem like over here, Greeks seem to sport at least wavy hair a lot. So I can draw lots of people with curls.
Well, if you if you see a lot of the really statues from a certain period,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's Greeks depicted with long curly hair, especially the men with really long curly hair and curly beards. Although not everyone. There's obviously there's a lot of difference in the looks of people. They were just as different then as they were today, but there was a time period, at least, especially like people like Agamemnon. I think they have really long curly, like oiled hair, and that was a real fashion.
I think that was also styled, I think, the curls. But there is like in Greece, the rare hair is the extremely straight hair, is the rarest type, and of course the red hair is almost non-existent. But we do have red highlights, natural red highlights for some reason. I don't know how that happens, but we do have it. So if you have a person, like, for example, in my family, we always had this tendency for red highlights in the hair, like especially if it was blonde or brown, like, and we are not the exception. So
interesting.
But no gingers, no Greek gingers.
That's when I had my genetic results from 23andMe done a long time ago. One of the interesting things to me was out of all the phenotypes, whatever, all the tendencies, you know, like saying, oh, you'll have attached earlobes or whatever, you know, all those kind of things, traits. It said you don't have any red hair in your family, like you would be incredibly unlikely to have red hair. And that was weird because at a certain stage in my life my hair had sort of like looked reddish, like I'd never had red hair, but especially like in photographs and that kind of stuff, it goes really red in photos, and it's so weird because my hair's not red. But yeah, apparently there's none in my genotype. So
yeah. And same for like most of the Greeks. So yeah, you would mostly have people within the range of waves to curls over here. So I get away with that. I really like drawing it, and yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and especially drawing grown in hair that has just grown out and it hasn't been styled and it just exists is a lot of fun as well.
It is cool. I love drawing hair, especially different hairstyles, and that can be really hard. Like short hair is so hard to draw because it has to follow the shape of the head in certain ways, and styles are very particular, you know, parts and all this, and they fall a particular way. They're so hard to draw short hair. It's always a challenge to me. I enjoy doing it, but it's it's difficult.
Yeah. For me, it's mostly a challenge to draw the exact same hairstyle across different panels. Especially, for example, Iris has a lot of hairstyles that she goes through, although she looks the same, and that's probably my fault. But she has this whole mise en plie look that was very stylish at the time, and she has these elaborate parts that she does with this style, and has these big hair clips that are flashy and stuff, and that is hell. Not to draw once, that is okay, but to draw it from many angles as she moves, from panel to panel, and I have to remember exactly how I drew her the first time, and how the stupid hair clip looks, and stuff like that. That's my challenge more than anything else.
Yeah, so. But it's difficult to do this from different angles. It would be so much easier if you can create 3D models of these people, just have someone to photograph from all the different angles, and then that might be a thing to do. Grab someone and style their hair up. But yeah, even with the short hair from different angles, I don't understand it. Long hair is a lot easier to do from different angles because there's not as much it's more amorphous. I love doing the hair of the characters from Bottomless Waitress, except for Frances. Frances has this weird kind of bob hair that I designed, and I don't understand it, and I never will.
It looks really awesome, though.
Oh, thanks. It's all like it could never really work in reality. I'd have to just get someone to style hair in a certain way and say, "Yep, that was what it was meant to look like." Yeah.
Actually, I think that is a hairstyle, a very 60s hairstyle. It would require a lot of teasing and hairspray, but it's a thing. It could easily. Not for me. No, but people that are good with a hairbrush and a blow dryer would be able to do it.
Oh my God, Tance, you could do Polly. You got the red hair now.
Yeah, but it's not nearly as big, and it's not curly.
Just get the hairspray out and tease, back comb it up, and you'll be fine.
Or maybe I just touch one of those magic lamps that are static, and it just becomes big on its own.
Exactly. That's her whole preparation in the morning. She just goes zap, and then boom.
That's it. Another thing that can be hard is to draw updos, especially if they are elaborate updos. That can be hard as well because
beehive?
It's or like bands that aren't the normal little classic band, but they are sort of changing the shape of the head in a sense that you have to keep, like make it more aerodynamic in the sense that if it is like a banana bun or however it's called.
I Dream of Jeannie kind of thing with a big.
Yeah, that as well. That is easier, I think. But something like let me think of someone. It's like a chignon. Well, I cannot remember a famous person wearing it, but it used to be extremely popular in the late 60s.
Well, that's the thing, you see these it's very popular in Syria, the camel hump style hijab, or shala, whatever they call it, the headscarves that they have, and they're very big at the back, especially. It's quite the headscarves are really big and long, and the purpose behind that is it's meant to make it look as if they've got a head of fulsome hair, and it's all tied up in a kind of a beehive thing, or like a really kind of a big bun. And it's all fake, of course. You know, they've got like sponges and like rags and stuff, like padding out the headscarf to make it look as if they've got a lot of hair. But it's an interesting little fake there. So there isn't that big bun of hair in there. It's just it's all artificial. But that's the purpose of the look of those headscarves and why they look so long at the back.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That was the purpose. I thought it was just the way the ceremonial thing was.
Oh no, it's fashion. It's purely fashion. Yeah, and they actually don't like it in some like more conservative kind of imams and things will have their little, you know, speeches against it. Oh, vanity. Oh, people, you know, doing these different styles. Oh, you shouldn't do that. Oh, you'll bring shame. You know, all that kind of bullshit that like older people will do it. Younger people's fashion. So. But yeah, in their language, it's called camel hump. I can't remember what that is in Arabic or Syrian or whatever. But yeah, that's the slang term for it. So yeah, big hair is, or at least the impression of big hair is popular. I mean, even with the beehives and those kind of styles, people would have artificial things to bulk it out.
Oh yeah. I mean, even now you do have like these donut things that put in the hair to make a bun, and like I have those, and they are very good to shape the bun easily rather than do it without any base. But it also helps give a lot more volume beyond that, especially if you just pile the hair around it, so it looks a lot bigger than if you just coil the hair around itself. So.
Yeah, I mean, and people will add extra pieces to their hair, of course. You know, we have like weaves and extensions, but like just for doing your hair, you might have like a clip-on fringe or a clip-on tail or like clip-on pieces just to bulk out. As long as it matches your hair, then it works.
Yeah, absolutely. There are certain styles that actually require it. You cannot pull off the style if you don't have extra hair, because humans have like a finite number of maximum
Yes.
hair. So for some hairdos, you need more hair than you could possibly naturally have. So you have to add the extra clip-ons and stuff, and those are usually, some very elaborate warrior princess braids, and a hairstyle like Elsa's from Frozen requires that, because I think they even, like the creators even said that they added more hair than is humanly possible on her head. And all of that. So
yeah. I mean, the only way, some people have slightly more hair than others. That happens. I think the only way you can really do it naturally is when you prevent yourself from the natural loss that happens. So we all grow hair and then lose it at a rate, because hair grows and then it falls out. So if you can retain that, like dreadlocks, then things get bulked out naturally. So dreadlocks are a great way to do that. They stop the loss because everything gets incorporated into the mass.
And but it's a very specific style. I mean, if you don't want the style of dreadlocks, then you are still hemmed in in this issue, in this problem. And of course, like if you help your hair out with proper diet and stuff, but still, I mean, there is a limit to how much hair you can have, even if you do everything properly. Like our genetics plays a ceiling. So then you add more on your own.
Well, you're like what's that actor? Not actor, singer. Like Justin Hawkins, and there's the film clip to I Believe in a Thing Called Love, and he's got this massive hair, and you're almost convinced that it's real, and then you realize, oh no, that's all extensions, that's all like stuff added, because obviously he doesn't have that much hair. No one does. It's bulked out, but it's very impressive. I am.
Yeah, and beyond, like, even if you don't use extensions, there are ways to make your hair look a lot bigger than it normally would be. Like, you can bulk out your hair a lot if you want to. So yeah, I mean, that to go back to the topic would show a lot of things about the character. If they have really big hair, that they make sure it stays big, more than, like, that requires like, the big hair requires maintenance, and they do it. That means that they care about their appearance. I mean, you have a whole bunch of storytelling that you're doing just by the character's hair.
It also sets the period too very easily. Like, it's a great shortcut for saying when something is set, because hairstyles are very different depending on the decade. Well, I mean, the hairstyle that most people have. So it's the 1980s, then there'll be particular looks that were popular in the 80s. 80s had a lot of different hairstyles, you know, the mullets and rat tails and short at the sides, curly at the front. I'm thinking of just men's hair, but ladies had this kind of big, bulky kind of back combs, kind of teased hair,
Perms,
fringes.
Perms were very much the thing.
Yes, very much. 70s had this kind of blown out look for the ladies, which was layers, and the men had this sort of a similar kind of style as well, kind of shaggy and longish. That was the men. Oh, and the bald hairstyles, my god, there were people with they'd be bald on top, but they'd still grow their hair out long. And, oh my god, the mutton chops and stuff, just some disgusting hairstyles. It's just severe. Yes, the sins of the 70s.
Yeah, well, I mean, every decade has some elements that looks ridiculous to all the other decades, but it was very much a thing at the time. Like, for example, I think like in earlier eras, for what was that? Not Edwardian. I think it was Edwardian, with the little curls the women had, framing their face, and all the hair was. They all looked like they had no hair, because the way that they coiled the hair made it tiny, and they had these bunches and bunches of curls on either side. I think it was, and it's like they had little bunches of grapes on either side of their head. Only they were curls, and I think it was around the Edwardian period, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know. I know, like, there was a style with the little curls on the sides from the Napoleonic era that was quite popular then.
Yeah,
with just curls on the sides, but they did have. You could see hair at the back. I remember there was this style of the late 19th century, I think maybe Edwardian, where it's very it's not long at the back. I mean, obviously the hair is long, but it's all tied up, and then at the front they have this huge bouffant of curls just at the very front, and I hate it. I hate that style.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And generally, things that, at least to me, appear very imbalanced, or appears to make everything look like everyone is suffering from some kind of hair loss, so they are just doing what they can with what hair they have left. Oh my god, so sorry. I don't know why this keeps happening today. Let's put it on silent. There you go. So, that was, I mean, to me, really not good. But it was extremely popular at the time, and I guess that it was somewhat functional since they were all wearing bonnets and stuff like that. So they had flat hair around the head. The hat could go on easily, and then they had the big hair framing the face under the hat. So that works.
Yeah, hat hair. Well, there was a time when most men wore hats. I mean, actually, in history, men wore hats for most of history. But there have been... And so the hairstyles were probably styled around that. I mean, there's been a style for men having short hair since... Well, I'm not sure. It's probably since the mid 1800s, the mid 19th century.
Yeah, around there.
Towards the mid 20th century, and then we started getting longer again. But before that, men had different styles, and there were some quite longer than others. And especially if you go back to the 17th century, men had very very long curly hair, or they had it all shaved and they just wore huge wigs. So yeah, they had a lot of creative styles then. And the ladies had these very elaborate wigs as well, like with these huge wigs and weird like decorations in them, like little boats and bird cages and all sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in Marie Antoinette period, I mean, if you were upper class, you had to be an expert in balance, I suppose, because you had wigs that could be as high as you, and you had to balance that. So,
well, yeah, very creative wigs. They probably had, like we were saying, stuff padding those out. Obviously, they weren't all solid hair, so they'd have maybe wicker.
No, it would be massively heavy, I guess, if it was all.
Just a whole sheep on your head.
Oh my God.
Oh dear. Yeah, well, I mean, it got very weird with hair because so we started out with a fashion for men having very, very long hair in the 17th century, this really, really long curly hair. Then some of them had, obviously couldn't support that because they had things like syphilis and stuff like this, so they had wigs. And so the wig thing got more popular. And then rather than just having, a long wig in a long hairstyle, then they started to have these real more creative wigs that just owned the fact that it was artificial hair. So, horsehair wigs that are grey, and instead of being long and hanging, they're really tightly curled on top, and they have these weird big curls and curls down the back and stuff like that. And so that got more prevalent, but it wasn't just upper class people who wore it. It was people at all the different levels, and including soldiers. Soldiers had to wear wigs as part of their uniform, a wig and a hat on top of their wig, which I still find funny. Lowly soldiers, I'm not talking like officers or anything. I'm talking about like grunts, like people who do the the rough kind of work. They all had to have wigs.
Yeah, I mean, it was part of your sort of quote unquote uniform, in the sense that everyone had to wear this. So I don't think they thought it twice, in the sense that, yeah, it's part of what we do, what we wear.
That's how fashion goes. Yeah, it affects every part of life. So anyway, let's bring it back to comics a bit. What is your favorite comic character with a hairstyle? I mean, what's your favorite hairstyle on a comic character? That's probably a better way of putting it.
Oh, that's I cannot say that I have a specific hairstyle that I like. I like the character, and then I like their hairstyle.
Right.
Like, for example, one thing that I really liked when I was a fan of Rurouni Kenshin was that he had a range, a very subtle, I guess, a range of hairstyles that very much indicated the headspace that he was in a lot, and the time, the stage in his life. Like, for example, of course, it is completely anachronistic, because if he was in with the times, he would have this very awkward shaved bald head with a ponytail that flops over the bald head that samurai had at the time, but he doesn't. So he has this very full head of very luscious, very thick, big hair, and when he was an assassin, he wore it really high on his head in a very narrow ponytail that is extremely, let's say, work-oriented. Like, he had most of his hair out of his face, and everything was very much under strict control. And he was this feared assassin. And then when he stops being that and he goes into his roaming around Japan to atone, and he's this pacifist now that has this weird sword that doesn't kill, suspension of disbelief there. He has his hair in a very low ponytail that is very loose and sort of gives an air, a feeling of relaxation in a sense. But when he goes, yes, exactly. And as he goes, there is like in the last part of his story, he has this extreme sequence where he believes that the woman that he loves has been assassinated because of him. So that the guy that supposedly assassinated her tries to hurt him. So he believes that basically she's dead because of him, blah, blah, blah. So his hair is completely loose. Like, he doesn't take any attention to even pull his hair back, let alone actually, groom himself and stuff.
So he's disheveled.
Very disheveled. And of course he looks gorgeous because he's a cartoon. But the idea is that everything is in his face, like his hair is everywhere and stuff. And that is actually pretty devastating to watch. I mean, if you are immersed into the story and you see him in this situation, you really hate it. Although he looks pretty and stuff, because he always is a pretty boy. But you hate that. And then when he realizes that she is alive and he has to go save her, blah, 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 he pulls his hair back again, but not in the high ponytail. And in the very end, when he finally finds peace and happiness with his family, because he grows this family with this woman, he has his hair cut in a chin-length bob, in a sense.
What?
And and his hair is cut. Of course, it's still big on the big side, but it is cut to this sort of length, like just below his chin, and it looks really simple and completely calm, like he has cut off all the weight, but he's carrying, in a sense, and he's happy and he's calm and he's living his life, and it's beautiful as a progression just through his different hairstyles. So that's that.
My favorite hairstyle of the comic character, I think, the original Lobo. He has big long hair, and I love it. That looks awesome, and he's a big kind of muscle fellow too, so he looks like an 80s wrestler. That style, ridiculous, huge hair. I love that. And actually, Superman, the original Superman, with his really kind of his styled short hair, and it's kind of liquid black with a little tiny curl at the front. I find it's full of
brilliantin. That's why it's so glossy.
Yeah, But it's cool. So those two extremes.
Yeah.
That's all that come to mind immediately. But I imagine there are a lot more comic characters I really like.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's hard to think of comic characters with hair that I like, except for those two.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of others. I mean, let me think. Yeah, I can't really, like, nobody comes to mind right now. Except Genshin, I mean, and
Ooh, what about on Drunk Duck?
on Drunk Duck.
I quite like the hairstyles that Emilius has in Charby the Vampire.
Oh yeah, those are pretty glossy.
Yeah, very, very glossy and elaborate. And the characters have very specific hairstyles for their character. It's hard to find any two characters with the same hairstyle because they're all quite different. There's a lot of black hair in that comic, which is a bit of a commonality. But yeah, they have all very, very different hairstyles. So I quite appreciate them.
I'm just opening my favorites just to see, because I cannot really think off the top of my head. So I'm just browsing a little bit. Okay, let's see. There is the hair that I also really like, although it is very simple and stuff. It is always very glossy, very perfect, I would say, is the hair on what's her name? My God, I'm terrible with names, but in Tusk by Fallopian Crusader, the Orc Lady, the main character, who I really like in general. I really like her hair. She has this extremely black, super glossy hair that swishes here and there, and I really like that.
Oh yes, she has a bit of the Betty Page look.
Yeah,
which is that was made popular by her. That's very classic. I've tried to do that a couple of times in hairstyles. I mean, even my character Polly, Mayan Bain's character, she has a little bit of that. Like I give her the straight fringe that was very popular with the Betty Page, except she's more of a Peg Bundy kind of look. If you've ever seen Married with Children, that also is her style. So yeah, that was a big thing. That's funny, actually. I paid a lot of attention when I put a lot of attention into their hairstyles of those characters. I did so Polly with the Peg Bundy look. So she's meant to be, a tall lady and a very kind of bombastic personality like Peg Bundy. Then there was Jane, who was more delicate, nice, and she has a hairstyle almost like one of these, like a Greek temple priestess. So she has this kind of curly kind of look, and that's just what I felt like doing on her. Although she's kind of African American kind of lady, but only part of that. And I thought, that hairstyle could work with her. And whereas Frances has more of a Kelly Bundy kind of a look, a bit of a dumb bimbo blonde. So that's her particular style. And say her boyfriend, which is Daniel, which her unfaithful boyfriend. I wanted him to look like one of these 1950s, 1960s kind of greaser kind of looks, like the Fonz, one of these characters who pays a lot of attention, combs the hair, she has the black slick kind of pompadour. And Craig, which is meant to be the full-on love interest, I was influenced by the Italian comics of people like Milo Manara and that kind of work. Yeah, so I wanted him to look like some kind of Italian fisherman boy kind of thing with kind of shaggy hair without a style. So yeah, I had a lot of influences when I was doing that. Oh, and the other character is Wilfred, who has this Wilfred has this ginger long hair tied back because I wanted him to be like a bit dorky, and so yeah, tied back hair and a mustache. I thought, that's kind of a dorky scientist. And the last character is Nikki, and she's like this big, tall, 6 foot plus lesbian lady, truck driver, and I wanted her to look more alternative and a bit very individual. Like she's cut her hair in a particular style that's just her own, and she doesn't care what anyone else thinks. So I gave her this kind of weird blonde fringe at the front and black at the back, kind of really short hairstyle. And that was
it really even like not even what am I saying? Like for every character, I mean everything fits really well.
Thank you. That was it's a more designed kind of look than I usually go for in my stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed that process. It was fun doing that character creation from the start rather than just as I'm going, which is what I usually do. So yeah, I've just been talking about myself in my comics. Oh well, but yeah, that's a specific thing. Well, actually, you brought up Ruin Kenshin.
Yes.
Now, manga hair is a very different thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't always like it, to be honest, because sometimes it feels disjointed by what they are supposed to be, like the characters. Because when you have, for example, a very specific time period where everyone else is conforming to the time period, and then you have the main character that has manga hair and is big and spiky and all over the place and blue, then that throws me out of the story. If everyone has manga hair, even though normally at the time period they wouldn't have that, I'm okay with that because I can suspend disbelief and just immerse myself in this alternate history sort of thing, and that's fine. But usually they don't always do that. I mean, it's a very creative artistic choice. I don't always like it, so it's a case by case thing.
Yeah. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's weird. The two styles that I've noticed in manga hair is the two main styles is chopped look with huge kind of clump spikes, but it's a stylization. It's meant to look like messy hair, whereas it's always like disappoints me. But when cosplayers take that literally and they reproduce it by actually having huge spikes of hair all gelled together. And they think that they're looking like the manga character, or the anime character, but this is a stylized look meant to symbolize messy hair. It's not actually meant to be spikes on your stupid head.
Yeah, but would you recognize the character if they didn't do that, though?
Oh, I would, much more easily. Looking at the spikes sort of takes me out and think, oh, and I have to work back and realize, oh, this is a real person pretending to be. Oh, I see. Rather than actually being the character, like more embodying because the characters are stylized. If you're going to go for stylization, then make your eyes big and get rid of your nose and make your mouth really tiny.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I understand the approach, but I also understand when they want to actually replicate what they see as best they can, like become a manga character, and that's like the closest thing and the easiest quote unquote thing to do, in the sense that, you know, make your hair big and anime style or manga style. So I don't mind it as much, I would say, that they carry the stylization to real life, because they are not really trying to replicate real life, in a sense. So
I just it's annoying to me that it's just seems so wrong. Well, the other big style is the super glossy style, which is ridiculously glossy, and I think that's more of an artistic influence, in that because the artists can make things look ridiculously glossy, they just do it and they go for broke. But it's it looks incredible. You know, you have these characters pink hair, but it is so glossy that it would actually literally be glass to be that shiny with those highlights that they have, and it's mesmerizing. And we don't get that in Western comics, really.
Not as much. But lately, I mean, there have been a lot of Western comics adopting a lot of manga trends. So you do get some, I guess, depending on what they're going for.
Yeah, there is a bit of that influence. There is indeed. It has bled over as people have.
But definitely in manga, like the biggest, most impressive hair is that of the main character, for sure. And usually they're not supposed to be styling it that way. It's just supposed to be their natural hair state, I guess.
That's one of the weird things, that people in manga and anime naturally have blue hair or pink hair. It's just a genetic type, unless they actually dye their hair. Do you think the characters? Maybe sometimes the characters are dyeing their hair, and sometimes they're it's just natural.
I think a lot of times it's not specified, but I think especially if they are supposed to be like characters in the wilderness, or, you know, in settings where they wouldn't be able to dye their hair. I mean, it's supposed to be, I think, natural, like they naturally grow pink hair.
Same as cat ears, or
yeah, pretty much. I mean, that whole thing. And it's fine. I think it's like a style, and it also maybe allows the artist to also get away with a lot more things, because when you have characters that naturally grow purple, pink, blue hair, you can also believe that they do some other fantastical things as well. They're more like magical characters, in a sense.
Yeah, one of the things it really does is differentiates the characters from one another. So even though the faces look exactly the same, you can more easily tell them apart. Like,
yeah.
It's a big thing in Western comics. You know, the typical style in Western superhero comics. The men always look different, but the women usually look very similar. And one of the only ways you can tell them apart is their hairstyles. So that has been, and costumes, of course, but that has been a thing, because the artists haven't been too creative in the way they draw different women. Not all the time.
They also, like, imagine if they have like a whole studio and, you know, people that are mass drawing the same character. You would need, I guess, shortcuts, so that everyone can draw the same way, the same character. So maybe that's also a thing. Though I'm not sure. I would imagine.
Yes, quite possibly. I'd be interested in knowing about some other people and the way they create their characters and their look, and how they come up with their hairstyles, and what they like, you know, in the look of characters and hairstyles. 'Cause it's very individual.
I remember when we were creating the characters for Brave Resistance. that the hairstyles, like with Pitface, we didn't really sit down, okay, let's now choose the hairstyles for every person. But they definitely grew according to the person's personality. Like, for example, Nikos became this natural blonde guy who is pretty rare for Greeks. Like, Greeks aren't, we do have natural blonde Greeks, especially from the north, but they are not very usual because most of us are born blonde, but we become dark around our teens. Like in the teens or early 20s, everyone turns dark. It's like a curse. So people that retain their blonde hair are pretty rare over here. So Nikos is one of those rare people. And the reason that he retained his blonde hair is because we wanted him to be like this short, shouty guy with this large personality, like a sort of a giant hidden, trapped into a small body, in a sense. And he has also this unique color to his hair that singles him out from the others. So that's why, I mean, he's a very much a guy that attracts attention to himself, which is why blonde felt right for him. Whereas Hunter is a guy that really likes, like, he's, when in normal circumstances, he's hit with the ladies, he really takes care of his appearance, he knows how to dance really well, and he has this very 40s haircut and style, and he likes to keep everything really, really neat on his head. So it's glossy, even now, a little bit.
Oh, jeez. So yeah, there's a lot of creativity and choice that goes into the styling of a character's hairstyle and the look and how it changes. I mean, right, Pinky has had a couple of changes as the comic has gone through. Like, she has her hair tied back in a lot of things, you know, and that's to show that she's being more serious and not being so like her personality is reined in a bit. She's not being so forthright or anything like that. She's taking things seriously and she's being a leader. So I have the hair tied back just to show that it just felt right. So that's what she does. And Cece gets even more slicked back hair. The more authoritarian she becomes, the more slicked back it becomes. So has
very indicative.
Yeah, a bit of a Samson sort of thing.
That's very apt, actually. Yeah. And I remember we have this little side scene with Pitface, you know, in these interactions that we were imagining and thinking when we were determining the personalities of especially of Hunter and Nikos, because they are the main characters. And there is this little sort of snippet scene where Hunter is combing out his hair in front of a mirror just before going out, and the moment that he has everything done just right on his head, Nikos just opens the door really suddenly, and the gust of wind just makes everything messed up again. So Hunter has to go and recomb anything, and the moment that he again does it right, the door opens again, and then he realizes that Nikos is messing with him and stuff. So there are little things like this that will happen. And yeah.
Well, that's very clever.
Yeah, and then he just the third time he does his hair with his foot on the door, so that Nikos cannot open it again.
Oh dear. Actually, not many of your characters wear hats, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas...
And that's there are two reasons for this. One, I hate drawing hats. There is it's really hard for me to draw hats, which they shouldn't be, but they are. I don't know. But also, a lot of people in resistance did not wear hats, or they wore hats in very specific situations. Like now that we are going in for a big battle, more people are going to be wearing their military hats because they are going into battle and stuff. But normally, unless they were out, for Sunday best, or they were going out for some business or some sort of thing like that, people didn't really wear hats as often and frequently. And you see that in the photos as well. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Because like you see that in the photos of Australia from the time, everybody wears hats like a uniform. And it's very rare not to see people in hats.
Yeah.
Until the 1960s, I think.
Yeah, like for example, if you see people sitting out in having their coffee at like Sintama Square, they will all be wearing hats because this is like, okay, I'm have to be presentable. But if you see like a photo from a demonstration at the time, or a photo from other scenes where they are not seeking to be presentable, but they are trying to do something else, they are not wearing hats. So I'm sort of taking my liberties with that wherever I can. Yeah.
Yes, you've even got a lot of the Nazis not wearing hats quite often.
Well, they are usually indoors. You don't wear hats indoors. That's why.
You're getting around it all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
Loopholing.
They usually don't wear hats indoors. That's why also the priest doesn't wear his hat indoors. Like I have to draw him in a hat when he's outdoors, because they always wear hats outdoors if they are priests. But
those little patriarch hats.
He's not a patriarch.
Okay.
If he was, his hat would have like a small little, like a cape sort of thing, like a shawl that trails back. So that's the sign of a patriarch.
Right. So he's just got a circular hat instead. On the top of
But I have drawn a patriarch in the scene where they have the people's court. The guy, the priest that is there, if you notice, he has this hat, this specific hat that denotes his rank, and that guy is a patriarch. So.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting. Do they have a specific hairstyle in the priesthood?
Yeah, they have to have long hair that is always pulled back in a bun or in a small ponytail, but usually a bun. And they also have to have facial hair that, like, depending on how traditional you are in the church, it is unkept, or it is slightly kept, or it is trimmed to the jaw, but this didn't come around until like the late 60s. So now we have only the long beards and the medium beards.
Interesting. So they're like Sikhs. They have to have a particular hairstyle as part of their thing. Except Sikhs do that not as part of their priesthood. They all the men do that. That's It's something they do.
Yeah, no, it's only the priests, and the idea behind it is that they remain in mourning until the second coming. So they wear all black, and they don't cut their hair, like they don't groom themselves as they would if they were in celebration. So
that's interesting.
That's the logic behind it in the Orthodox sense. So.
Oh, I never knew that.
Mm.
Well, there you go. There you have it, people. That bombshell. That new bit of knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, so we should wrap it up, I suppose. We've reached about the hour mark, and we have gone deep into the roots, the follicles.
Yes. Of hair.
We have. We've backcombed, teased out the subject, blown through it.
So now it's time to trim it a bit.
Oh, there you go. Very good, very good. So thank you very much for listening to QUACKCAST number 570 about hair. Oh God, we should have had you singing the theme to hair. If you remember that song. I can't remember it, damn it. Hair, 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 something, hair. Free flowing, blah, blah, blah. You know that musical from the 1960s?
No.
It's the famous musical where people get naked.
No, that would have been burned in memory. So, no.
Goodness me. Well, you need to have a look. It's got this great song, This is the coming of the age of Aquarius.
That's from a musical. I didn't know that.
It's from Hair. Oh well, people, go and that's your mission. Go and watch Hair.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for listening to this particular QUACKCAST. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I shouldn't wave because you can't see me, but I'm waving.
You got waves in your hair.
I don't right now, but if I leave it natural, yes.
Dancer's hair is waving goodbye.
Yeah.